Okay. Well, that's fine. Secretary General and the chairs of various commissions can now come and provide the needed clarity. Sure.
Mostly I'm the one on the block.
And Comrade Ayanda, so there's a specific question that they wanted you to clarify. You'll just come and deal with that as well.
Maybe on the land issue, we need to take you down memory lane. The first thing we agreed on land expropriation without compensation, subject to a number of economic considerations. That was in conference. After that, we had to engage in a series of processes of refining. How do we do that exactly? Among other things, in March we had a workshop. The proposals of the workshop were taken to the National Executive. What then was contained in that? The first thing I want to say, we then said the Constitution in its present form does not preclude expropriation without compensation. It does not. And we're saying so in the statement. We're going to come back to that point in a moment. And then we then said we'll have a number of processes that we're going to engage on. Among other things, we said we will test that in a court, the provisions of the court. And secondly, we also put a proviso that will have to, in the circumstances, look at tampering with Section 25, subsection 2B. Is contained in our resolution of the National Executive in May. Thirdly, we said the Constitution embodies our democratic values and has got transformative impulses, which we will use the constitutional review process to strengthen and clarify. I want to add that so that you should see the continuation of the discourse. What has happened subsequent to that is that there's been public hearings. We cannot ignore the voices of our people. That's what we're saying in the statement. What the statement then suggests, what we're saying is that in the context of when we're sitting as a Lekhutlha, you must understand the next meeting of the National Executive is May. We've got to review the process, what is taking place now. And what in the review we've said, we have been watching all the public hearings, and we've been meeting people in different places as part of our interaction with the people. And clearly there's an overwhelming view that even if there should be clarity of purpose under which conditions we will do expropriation without compensation. And that is necessary not only for us, for our people, it's necessary for society as a whole so that we provide clarity on the rules of the game. That's basically what this process is about. Are we trying to undermine the parliamentary process? No, not at all. We are recognizing that that process, we're meeting at the tail end of that process. And clearly, the implications of that are suggesting that most of our people favor the route we're taking. And therefore, as a political party, we will contribute, like all other political parties, to this process. That's our contribution to that discourse in Parliament. We're not undermining Parliament. So we've not abandoned the testing. The testing is part of the parallel process. In fact, our resolution, which we're not going to share with the public for now, we've identified some of the areas in which we want to test the provisions of the Constitution. It's part of the discussion we've entertained over the weekend. What are the likely proposals for these conditions? As part of the refinement processes, that's one part we're going to discuss. And as we announced down the line, we think that there's a shift Whereas internal, there's a democratic process to around that particular debate. But personally, I can say there are guidelines offered in the Ready to Govern document in terms of what property or what kind of land we should be looking at. The Ready to Govern document also talks about land held for speculation, land which is not underutilized land, a whole range of processes. That's also going to be part of the guideline of the discourse. I'm not saying that's the final exhausted list. Insofar as the stimulus package, we cannot sit when we're discussing what is happening in the economy at the moment. Let me just look, for instance, in one sector which is strategic, which government infrastructure spending impacts on the construction industry. If you use that as your starting point, the construction industry, the previous quarterly bulletin, not the last one that came last week, showed that industry lost about 107,000 year on year jobs. As we speak, two of the major companies in that industry, Levero and Bursaries, are under business rescue. They're demonstrating that there's an impact. If that industry suffered, there's a knock-on effect to the other industries. Clearly, the job situation which came out at 11:30 yesterday also suggests that instead of abating, the unemployment situation is becoming worse. As a responsible political governing party, we've got to respond to that. And the stimulus package is part of that, respond to that question. The question is where the money is going to come from. Among other things we've suggested, without undermining fiscal consolidation, clearly we've got to relook at the expenditure composition of that budget. At the expenditure composition of that budget and redirect it, a number of that towards the areas identified for the stimulus package. That's largely how we're going to deal with that question. Have we indicted with the EFF guys? Not as far as I know. Maybe Lamula, that's his generation. He has indicted with them, not me. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, colleagues. So, this is how we're going to move. Comrade Ayanda is going to come and deal with the reconfiguration. Comrade Zweli will deal with will expand on statecraft and transformation. Comrade Naledi will deal with the NDP and versus the graduate recruitment and training program. Comrade Mamangosa Zana will deal with the capacity and performance of the state, and Comrade Dumo will deal with will expand on SOEs. Diana.
Thank you very much. On the reconfiguration, the macro configuration of the state, Section 7, Section 3(4) of the Public Service Act enjoins the Minister for Public Service and Administration to advise the President regarding the establishment or the abolition of departments, the designation of such departments, and the head thereof, or the amendment to such designation. Work in that regard has begun in the department. We are a long way off with regards to finalizing our work, but that work would also have to go through various steps to ensure that there is quality assurance for purposes of ensuring that there is alignment with all of the stakeholders, and also so that we can be able to effect the interfaces of planning, implementation, and budgeting as we develop, as we present this back to the President. On the interface between politicians and public servants, again, Section 12 also enjoins us to also assist both premiers in provinces and also the President in the deployment of public servants to certain positions. If it is in the case of heads of departments, the appointment and career incidents of all DGs are the prerogative of the President. Same in provinces, that's Section 12(1)(a) and (b) of the Public Service Act. Same as with the premiers in provinces, they have the sole prerogative for the appointment and career incidents of heads of department. That cannot be done in isolation of the executive authority that exists, but also in conjunction with the Department of Public Service and Administration. Thank you.
No, thank you. I think what we want to add on the issues that were raised by Comrade Ayanda is how to ensure that we have a capable state and a capable developmental state, as we call it, which then takes into account a number of things that need to be put together. I think the first issue here relates to ensuring a professional civil service, a civil service that withstand the changes in the political principles through changes of administration, changes of movement of ministers, so that we can create a degree of stability in the senior leadership on the administration. This will ensure that we've got institutional memory, and it helps us as you look at multi-year planning cycles and looking at longer-term planning. For example, if you're talking about NDP that talks about 2030, then those who are in the administration must have a sense of planning that will span over that period, as well as some of the immediate decisions that have just been taken recently whilst they were within the administration. This creates a stable environment in terms of the administration, and we see this not only at the national level, where there's a rapid turnover rate of senior officials, sometimes associated with the changing of ministerial appointments. We also see the same in the municipalities, where the term of office of municipal managers ends just after the new council has been inaugurated, and that has created a degree of instability which results in the audit outcomes that we see. So after the first election, after the election of the municipalities, then you see that the deteriorating outcomes, and later there's improvement that is really as a result of the fact that there are changes. So lots of capacity building goes in, and then later on with the changes that tends to affect them. So these are some of the issues, therefore, that had to be looked at. And the second aspect relates to the depth of skills within the administration, balance between managerial skills and technical skills, and this becomes an issue that has to be monitored and worked on very closely. In addition, there is a role that has to be played by the National School of Governance in building the capacity and also focusing on the specific areas of need that will help us to stabilize the government service delivery processes. So there's a focus that's been raised here around evidence-based planning, which means that all the senior managers need to have very intensive training in that regard, so that what you look at with the outcomes that come from Statistics South Africa, that all gets used and incorporated both for planning as well as for monitoring of the impact of government on service delivery programs onto society. So we had quite a lot of discussion at that kind of level. So when we look at the issues of planning, we believe that it's important also to say there must be strong capacity of planning at the presidency's level, wherein then we ensure that there's integration both at a vertical as well as a horizontal level, integration and alignment of programs within different departments, as well as also alignment from province to national to province and to municipalities. Right now, we've actually been, we're going to be looking at pulling a number of departments to close these gaps of misalignments, and there are instances where you have had reports of bulk services available, reticulation not available, that need to be aligned, and all of this is a function of alignment of planning and spatial planning as we try and improve on service delivery. So the issue of training becomes a major issue. So overall, when we talk about the statecraft and transformation, we're looking at a state that is capable both in terms of the managerial technical skills, but also in terms of the structures that it has that have to be modeled to be able to offer effective service delivery across different spheres, and of course ensuring that the systems of government also are improved at that kind of level. That has been the kind of discussion that we've had to go into. So when we talk about now dealing with the issues of service delivery that the Secretary General talks about, we have to target various departments to ensure that all their budgets are aligned to a special special program that goes into areas and completes services in areas where the plans were actually disjointed. All of this has to be taken on a priority level, and of course must then be institutionalized into a longer-term planning program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, SG. Before I before I refer to the graduate recruitment program as discussed at the Lekgotla, I just wish to set the record straight with respect to the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. Firstly, there's no shambles or crisis at the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. However, there are matters of administration of bursaries to applicants that must be concluded for the year 2018 and the academic year 2017. And until I'm assured that those processes are properly concluded, we cannot open, because once you open applications, we defocus from 2017 and 2018 and then have a situation where institutions are owed money, students are not receiving their allowances. So we're just ensuring that we get all these processes properly concluded. We've been working very closely with the Student Financial Aid Scheme. We've got allowances out, tuition is being paid, but there are a number of areas in which I'm not satisfied. And so it is for that reason that I've said hold off for a while with respect to opening up applications for 2019. But there's no crisis and there's no shambles. I just wanted to make that clear. Then the second matter is Lekgotla expressed concern with the degree to which in our educational programs we are responding fully to the diagnostic analysis that had been included in the National Development Plan. You would recall that particularly with respect to basic education, a number of concerns were indicated in the diagnostic analysis, and again in those domains that are called critical skills areas, your engineers, doctors, the basic science graduates, that we're not producing the numbers and quality that is required. But a third aspect was an indication in the NDP that many young graduates find it very difficult to find a space in the economy or indeed in the public service. So we agreed that we actually need to look again at a properly designed graduate recruitment program, which would involve not just the public service, but would also include organs of civil society. We have large NGOs in the country which do have some absorption capacity, and with a proper arrangement, you actually could find many more places where young graduates would gain experience, have the opportunity of working, and actually becoming a contributor to their own livelihood. So we said we recognize the efforts that have been made by government with respect to internship programs, but we believe we need a far more carefully designed program that would actually ensure that we get a range of institutions participating in graduate placement and offering real work experience to young people. So this is in response to the NDP's concern about the need to ensure that the young people that emerge from our post-school system actually are able to earn a livelihood, to acquire work experience skills, and then to proceed to whatever domain they may want. And we've not really fully addressed the complementarities that a range of different institutions could bring into play in ensuring young people have greater work opportunities. So that is the mandate that we've been assigned to look into by the Lekgotla. Thank you very much. Comrade Chief.
Thank you. Thank you very much, SG. I'm just going to speak a bit more on the improving the capacity of the state. One of the things that was identified is that the ANC makes policies and strategic direction of where the country should go, where government should go. But in the state, we need to improve the capacity to take that policy and plan properly and implement it. Because sometimes changing that policy into an implementation plan takes so long, or sometimes doesn't happen properly, and therefore the implementation does not happen at the pace that we would like it to happen. And secondly, we need to improve the integrated planning, because at the moment there is the planning is very decentralized. You'll find different plans at the national, at the provincial, at the local government that don't really speak to where the country as a whole should go. So that integrated planning is very important. But it's not only at the three spheres of government, but even within government, we need to coordinate and integrate, because sometimes at government level, we work as though we're a federation of departments rather than just one government. So it's very important to improve that capacity at government. The technical skills are also very important, because what we find is that the technical skills to implement the government plans sometimes are lacking at all spheres. And then what happens? We have to now pay consultants to come and do the work that should be done by people inside the department. And also, then you find that sometimes we have to form agencies and outsource what actually could be done by government if the technical skills were sufficiently there. So that's another area that we need to improve, so that the capacity of the state is optimized. But also at the monitoring and evaluation, we need to strengthen that. Not only to monitor at the national level, but at all levels, at the provincial level and at the local government level. Some of the areas that our people protest about is things that if we had monitored them properly earlier, probably could have been fixed before they cause protest, and especially at local government level, but at all levels. But local government is very important, because that's where our people interact with government on an hourly basis or minute-to-minute basis. So that capacity is very important, and the monitoring of what is going on there. Because sometimes we take the spheres of government as though they mean that each province is a state on its own, whereas we are a unitary state, and the three spheres of government distinct but interrelated and interdependent according to the Constitution. Therefore, national cannot abdicate its responsibility when things are not going right. So we should be monitoring, working together in an interdependent way. So those are some of the aspects that we discussed as far as improving the capacity of the state. And the monitoring, therefore, has to be at national, but also in all spheres. But we have also agreed that we should also monitor the SOEs, because at the moment, the SOEs were not part of the monitoring and evaluation, but government the ANC has said the SOEs must also be monitored. But therefore it means even the capacity of monitoring and evaluation should be strengthened so that we could be able to monitor all these areas that need to be monitored. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade SG. Indeed, in keeping with the statement just made here in us being a unitary state, the SO is, as Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma has just said it, the work has already begun. You are aware of that. To assist, to intervene, to work hard to root out the challenges that have been identified in a number of our SOEs, so that indeed we are in keeping with our resolve to building a capable developmental state, even in our SOEs. So the work indeed is continuing to root out corruption, to assist the streamlining of their performance, because we expect the SOEs to make their own contribution towards skills development. It's one aspect, but also those specific deliverables. There is indeed a need to look deeper on what needs to be done in a number of them, and that will be unpacked as we're going to be in the government soon, because the need to change has been indeed identified. There shall be consultations with a range of stakeholders, including labor, on the conversations that must happen to assist our SOEs. Issues around what types of boards and what skills are necessary. We're indeed paying a particular attention to that aspect, so that we have relevant skills and skilled people to manage the workforce that works there, relevant to the tasks, the boards. So it's going to be indeed the theme of the past going forward, that you'd have colleagues there who are appointed purely on the basis of other things other than what is expected of the job. Our government is going to be dealing with that. But the point I wanted to emphasize is that the work there has started. Things are moving. We can talk about ESCOM, DENEL, and a range of other entities. It will be happening in consultation with the relevant stakeholders, because the reality is that drastic interventions must really be unfolding, and that work has started to happen there. I just wanted to highlight that area in expanding on what already stated here.
Thank you very much, SG. I was protesting to Comrade Pule that how can I wear a suit and not be allowed to speak here. Thank you very much. I think I will answer some few questions. One, Mashatsi asked the forms of ownership that we want to have, and the outcomes of the National Executive Committee and the workshop. You will remember at the workshop outcomes, we were very clear that we are going to use the constitutional review process to clarify and to use it to be more explicit. And I think now is the tail end. That's why we're seeing our members across the country. I've attended some of the hearings in Bombela and Mpumalanga. in Limpopo, Mablo Hall, in Vryheid in KZN, and then in Umtata in the Eastern Cape. It is very clear our members were also briefed. You will have seen their participation, they were supporting the amendment, and they were also very clear that the land must be redistributed to the people. The land must be redistributed to the people. So it means that we are going to take it and give it to those who are going to use it. We are going to give them title deeds. If we are giving you a farm, we are going to give you a title deed to that farm. If we are giving you a house, for instance, the RDP houses, we are giving them title deeds. So we are not nationalizing the land of this country. Because if we do that, it means we are also going to dispossess black people who today have land. We are going to dispossess a black farmer somewhere in Makado, somewhere in KZN, or somewhere else. We are also going to dispossess black people who have got houses today in the urban areas. What will government do with an individual's house? Government is so we can't nationalize houses of people. We are very clear that this process of expropriation without compensation, you'll remember the 1913 Land Act dispossessed black people and not allow them to own land in the 87% of the land. So since 1994, we have now redistributed a particular percentage, and what is remaining now, which is still in the hands of white South Africans, is 72, including 72%. So we are going to use the Expropriation Act to transform that 72%. We want to transform it to reflect the demographics of this country. You can, if you like, you can call it land affirmative action. To transform that 72% so that we transfer the land to the majority of the dispossessed. So that is clear that it's not like the ANC now that it wants is agreeing to this explicit thing. We are saying now we must nationalize all the land. I think the ANC has studied the issue of the nationalization of the land in many countries, including the China that they like to pose about. What makes China tick in this regard? The banks and the financial sector in China is also owned by the state. So if you own the land, the state is able to help you. We are in the process of dealing with the banks and also being able to start a state-owned banks that will assist us with that at this stage. But if we do it today, who will then fund this process now? Because we don't have that instrument at this stage, which we are still going to build. But also, China also put measures that give security of tenure and clarity to that. It's a one-party state which gives certainty, political certainty, that tomorrow there will be no one who will wake up and say we are now taking away the lease. So when you compare China, you must compare it also with its political environment. Our political environment is different from the one of China. It's a multi-party democracy. And that is the other myth which we want to deal with is the fact that if we wake up tomorrow and say the state has nationalized all the land, it is now under the hands of states, therefore all South Africans will now be having land. It is not true. There will still be a need for legislation, how you are going to distribute, how you are going to do it, and it also does not mean that everyone will walk into a land. So it is also not going to be free. I think that is the other myth that I need to clarify. That position is not free. If we can wake up today as government and say we're nationalizing all South African land, we're now putting it under the hand of the state, it is not true that it will be free. If that thing is taken to the Constitutional Court, it will be found to be unjust and unequitable. And the state will have to pay billions of rents. The state does not have such billions of rents. So that position is not true that it's a free position. It's not going to be free if we just wake up and say we're nationalizing everything. It will also does not mean that all South Africans will wake up the following day with the land. But the other question which we just wanted to clarify, and I think the SG in his statement was very clear, is that the Lekgotla focus that young people in this country must find ways of employment, and the ANC must stimulate the economy to enable young people to enter the job market. And in this regard, the Lekgotla was anonymous about the scrapping of entry-level experience, even in government, and we also call upon the private sector to do the same, that for entry-level jobs, you can't expect a young person who has just graduated from VES to have experience. So entry-level jobs must allow everyone without any experience. The entry-level jobs must scrap the issue of experience. And government is going to start to do that. I think this Lekgotla will be more explicit and clear how that is going to be done. So we also call the private sector to do the same, so that our young people must be able to enter the job market with ease and gain experience and so forth, because we have seen that the internship program is not sufficient. So in terms of the forms of ownership, the statement was clear that we are retaining the current forms of tenure. The state will own land for its use and also to lease or whatever that it can do. Private individuals will still have their title deeds. Families will still own land. Communal associations and cooperatives can still own land as communal associations. What we want to do with the communal land is to give security of tenure to the people in rural areas. So we are also going to be clear as time goes on how we're going to do that in terms of the security of tenure. Thank you very much, Comrade SG, for allowing me to appear here with my suit. Thank you.
I'm sure we have covered almost all the questions. You can see that we have committed ourselves at the ANC to the speedy, radical socio-economic transformation on the issue of land. One issue we have not emphasized that much, I think, is the issue of national health insurance. It's one of the issues. We have issue of education. So we are implementing. And I think one of the questions you posed was why president? Remember, the president is the leader of the African National Congress. And the president does, from time to time, opens our Lekgotlas in terms of political overview, be it the National Executive Committee meetings, political overview and close. And at critical moments, we feel that before we give any content and details to issues, we collectively agree that it will be proper for the leader of the ANC to pronounce on key decisions we have actually taken. That's packaged on the issue of economy stimulus and the issue of the land. We felt very strong that the voice of the president must be very clear, so that today at this press conference, we give details and content to what the president has said, because this is the president of the ANC before he becomes the president of the country. And we wanted the president to give a very clear message and the line of march. So all of us will be marching, but the president considered all the public hearings as they are coming towards the end. And I think the inputs from the public resonate with what the ANC position is. And I'm sure we have covered all your questions.